What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Moments with the Marcelins. My name is June.
And my name is Stephanie.
And we are the Marcelins. Our moments together will be centered on three things: transparency, tools, and truth. And so in this conversation, this is part 2 of our episode with Dr. Reverend Gabriel Salguero as well as Reverend Jeanette Salguero on the topic of pain and suffering. And so this is part 2 of the episode. Make sure that you're continuing to take some notes, and I pray that you're blessed by this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anything ever sticks out to you during the message and, or the conversation, feel free to let us know. We would love to hear from you, and so you can find how to reach us in the description box below. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe so you get all the notifications to our videos as we upload them every single week.
All right, y'all. Be easy out there. Take care. God bless.
And much love.
It's interesting that you bring that up. I think about DMX, who recently passed away. He was one of my favorite rappers of all time for the fact that he had that level of vulnerability and people could relate to him, and he was open about his shortcomings. And he has a very probably his most popular song was Slippin', and it just kind of his journey with substance abuse and things like that. And so, there's just a level of like healing when you hear from others and their vulnerability and they open up about, hey, this is what I've gone through. There's like a sense of freedom that comes from that. And so I think that's why he was able to touch so many millions across the world, was because he was like, hey, like this facade that these celebrities have, I don't have it. Like I'm open, and this is my story, take it or leave it. And so I think that's a beautiful thing, which leads me to my next question. And I know we're going to wrap up soon, is that how does one know whether or not they've overcome pain, and how does one know whether or not they've overcome an emotional pain?
Well, first, let me just say this. I could talk to you all day, every day. So thanks for that. I mean, I love you guys like a love song, and I'll put that thing on repeat.
I wanted to say, based on the last question, the rabbi, I forgot his name, in the Psychology Today magazine indicated that we need to have 2 pieces of paper in our pockets, right? One piece of paper that says, "For my sake, the world was created." But the second slip, and he stated from the book of Genesis, "I am but dust and ashes." Mm-hmm. We have to keep those 2 slips of paper in our pocket, because homeostasis and balance in life resides in between those 2 pieces of paper, in between those 2 messages, somewhere in between hubris, the world was created, Jesus died on the cross for me, and humility, I am but dust, and I am limited, and I must look to a limitless God.
That's so good. That's so good. I think I'll marry that woman. But listen,
that was powerful.
That's powerful.
The reality, that's it. I mean, isn't that the gospel, that we are both beautifully and wonderfully made? We are the kind of apogee of creation. And then we are deeply broken and deeply sinful and deeply wounded. And so we are both powerful and fragile. Andy Crouch writes a book called Weak and Strong that talks about that we're both strong and vulnerable. And suffering reminds us of how vulnerable we are. And look, I need to say this. When we talk about suffering, we need to really, we could there are books written about it. There's a rabbi who actually wrote a book called Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. That's the actual title of the book. Not all suffering is the same. Mm-hmm. There's suffering because of evil. Somebody did something to you. They robbed you, they killed you, they hurt you. That's external evil impinging on you. There's suffering because you made a wrong decision, you committed a sin, so consequences of bad behavior or wrong decisions. But then there's this third one that really Christians often don't unpack. Mysterious suffering that you will never know the cause for. And we don't do well with mystery because we want to know everything. We want to explain everything. Like, well, there's things for example, why do some people get cancer and others don't? Why do some respond well to chemotherapy and others don't? Why does some people survive COVID while other people die, and some of them are younger and older, right? And so there's a whole mystery, right? That it's not because of anything you did or anything or evil done upon you or to you. It's just you don't know. For a lot of people, that's the hardest one to accept.
Yeah.
When you don't, it's why the friends of Job were trying to find an explanation. You did this because you were evil. You did this because you committed some sin. You did this. Well, they didn't know, right? They weren't on that. They weren't in the heavens when that conversation happened. So they were speculating. And so we have to be careful, because sometimes when people are going through stuff and we try to explain it away, we hurt them more. We traumatize them, and instead of just walking with them through it. And there's another suffering called redemptive suffering. It's just the suffering of Christ, when you suffer for the cause of somebody else, to redeem them, to help them. And so those 4 types of suffering are not all written the same. They're not all experienced the same, but they're all suffering. And so the depth of that is important, especially for your listeners. I know you have a great crowd of listeners, and they're all in different stages of their life. Some of them may be young, some of them, it could be single moms, it could be people, struggling through high school or college or early in their professional life. That there are dimensions to this thing. Yeah. This thing has texture, and that's why it's important to embrace friendships and embrace people who will walk with you in your suffering.
That's so great. What advice would you give to someone enduring pain and suffering today?
Man, find allies.
Yeah, find friends.
Find friends who will listen to you and won't judge you when you're, screaming at the top of your lungs or weeping till you have 1 Samuel chapter 31, and they wept till they had no more strength to weep. That kind of, you ever cry? You ain't it. It's not tears just rolling down the face. It's the hyperventilation.
That soul cry.
Soul cry.
Yeah. I call it the ugly. All kinds of stuff. Your hair messed up. Oh man, because you don't have any more strength. And so you need people. You know what the New Testament writer says? That I love me some Jesus, man. Like I'm a big Jesus fan. For we do not have a high priest who's not touched by the feelings of our weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so that you got to find somebody who's touched, who's not trying to analyze it. Sometimes you don't need nobody to analyze your stuff.
You don't need Job's friends.
Yeah, you don't need Job's friends. Oh, well, this is happening because A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I nobody got time for that. I just want you to hear me. Yeah. I just want to empty my soul before you, and I want you to know that that's empathy. So number 1, find friends. Number 2 is, it sounds cliche, but prayer works. And prayer does not mean you're getting like, sometimes you're just sitting there in silence before the depth of the pain, but you're leaning on God, that utter dependency on God. For me, what helps me, I'm not universal. This is Gabe Salguero.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Make sure you develop deep friendships, and not just from moments of crisis and moments of emotional pain, but develop friendships that will journey with you in the good and in the bad times. Because then those friendships can become transactional, right? You want to cash in only when you have crisis.
Yeah.
But friendships that journey with you through thick and thin, and friendships that are with you in your moments of joy and peace and prosperity, I think is crucial. And get a good therapist.
Come on, Bishop. Come
on. Get a good therapist.
Therapeuo is the Greek word for healing and process.
Yeah, the process of healing. Sometimes God heals us instantaneously, right? Miraculously. But sometimes the process of healing is a lengthy one, and it's iterative, right? Remember the circle in our facilitating healing class? It's an iterative process, and sometimes a good therapist can help you just look at things with a different lens, with a different perspective. And I wanted to say something. Imagine if we always lived in peace and prosperity and joy and success, who would we become?
Yeah.
Would we become detached individuals? Would we need anyone? Would we need God? But also imagine if we lived in an eternal emotional turmoil, emotional crisis, right? In constant pain forever and ever and ever. We would turn into nihilists, right?
Yeah.
Just live in utter nihilism and depression and chaos. So I think the life in Christ is a combination of both, and both are necessary in Christian lives. And that's something that we have to come to terms with. Not everything can be joy and peace and success, and not everything is a crisis. You know, there is a beautiful what do you call when you knit? The beautifully knit life has both joys and sufferings, so that one, we won't become disattached to God and to others, or we don't dive and live in that nihilism and depression in a state of foreverness. So
that's good.
And June, you asked what advice we give. You know, I think that number one is embracing the totality of life.
yes,
Abundance, as Pastor Jeanette has said, abundance and lack, joy and celebration, and grief and sorrow. It's all all of it. It's all human. It's all human. And don't you never stay permanently in. There's not always a party, but there's not always a funeral. But there are parties and there are funerals. There's loss and there's lack and there's gifting and there's abundance, and it's all of us is our human journey. I would say that for me, one thing I do is sing. I'm a singer, man. I'm not a good singer, but I sing for me and for the Lord. Y'all know y'all like me singing. Come on, put that on podcast. Put it on podcast. Hashtag Pastor Gabe sings. Now look, I want to say this. Think about some of the music in American history. Right? You talked about rap, right? Rap is the postmodern poet grieving in public about the societal evils that make him right. Rap is modern day Book of Lamentations. So, but what about the blues? Nobody knows the trouble, right? American jazz, African American spirituals. You know,
that's where hip hop was derived from.
And so the one of the most suffered groups in American history is the African American experience, and Mahalia Jackson, they through song ventilated their pain. They didn't say nothing's going on here. They sang their pain. You know, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus.
Let nobody turn me around.
Right. And so you know, every life has a soundtrack. Right. And you don't have one song on loop. And sometimes it's the party song, but sometimes it's the lament song. Right. And sometimes it's the lost song. And so the soundtrack of our lives are sometimes the blues. But sometimes it's, you know, rave music. And so for me, part of the kind of healing, right? Why is the book of Psalms so rich? Because you have lament psalms and praise psalms and joy psalms and precatory psalms. Which, you know, when somebody be doing it to me, the precatory psalms come right to the frontal lobe. They're right up there. I'm like, happy are they that, you know, they come fresh. But then there's like, who is like the Lord, you know? And I shall lift mine eyes up to the hills from whence cometh my strength. My strength, right? And so song works for me. For other people, it's poetry. For other people, it's dance. For other people, it's sermons, right? So find those things. Aesthetic, cultural things that take you by the hand and remind you of God's presence in your suffering. That works for me. And so for me, it's song. For other people, it's dance. For other people, it's quiet. For other people, it's reading. Find those things that help you on the journey.
Wow. Such a great conversation. Any last words that you would like to share?
I love you. 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 Love you. Loved you yesterday. Love you today. I will love you tomorrow. And because love is what makes the whole world go round. It reminds us that we're deeply flawed and deeply loved. And I'm on a love fest, and so I want you to know that we are so proud of what God is doing through you, with you, and despite you. And so we celebrate you. And I really do think that your podcast is being an inspiration and a blessing to so many. So, big attaboy and attagirl, and just so proud to call you friends, really.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Pastors June and Stephanie, we are fans of yours. Always have been, always will be. And just so proud of you and what God is doing in you and through you. And Isaiah 43:2 says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop.
So that's so powerful. Thank you all again for the opportunity. Thank you for this conversation. This was amazing. We always have these deep conversations. Just how we happen to get it recorded, so I'm thankful for that. So if anyone wants to connect with you too, how would they be able to do that? If you wouldn't mind sharing.
At Pastors Salguero is our kind of Facebook, Twitter. Pastors with an S, Salguero is our handles on social media. I have a podcast, and so Dr. Gabriel Salguero. Of course, the gathering place is where we have the honor of serving as co-lead pastors. And so those are the ways we engage our public face. And so we're just honored to serve and just be available for God's people and God's purpose. Did I miss any other thing, babe?
No, very easy. tgporl.org. You click on our faces and you can also email us.
Well, thank you so much for being with us again. Thank you for all who are listening and tuning into this episode. Take care. God bless. And much love.